Beloved, today we are not gathered to talk about money as the world talks about it. We are here to legislate in the realm of the spirit. Finances are not just numbers, accounts, or salaries. Finances are spiritual pathways. Wherever money flows, authority has already been granted. Poverty is not merely a lack of cash. It is often the result of spiritual systems that were never confronted, contracts that were never revoked, and prayers that were never prayed with precision. Today is not a casual moment. This is a divine appointment. Heaven is listening for words that carry legal weight. Angels are waiting for instructions backed by faith, obedience, and alignment. When prayer becomes intentional, prophetic, and authoritative, it does not beg, it commands alignment. Today, you are not asking God if He can bless you. You are positioning yourself to receive what He has already authorized. One prayer can dismantle years of financial struggle when it is prayed from the right place, with the right understanding, and under the right authority. Financial breakthroughs do not respond to panic, anxiety, or emotional pressure. They respond to alignment. Desperation screams, but alignment speaks with authority. Many people pray for money while remaining misaligned in their thinking, habits, relationships, and obedience, then wonder why heaven seems silent. God is not withholding, He is waiting for order. Alignment is the language heaven understands. When your spirit, mind, actions, and decisions come into agreement with divine order, provision is no longer forced, it flows. Desperation says, God, I need, but alignment says, God, I agree. Agreement is powerful because heaven moves on. Covenant, not crisis. You can be in a financial emergency and still lack alignment. You can be calm, consistent, and obedient and suddenly experience overflow. Financial miracles are attracted to structure. God releases resources where there is capacity to carry them. Capacity is not about how much you earn. It is about how well you are positioned. Alignment begins internally. How you view money determines how it responds to you. If money is seen as survival, fear will govern it. If money is seen as stewardship, wisdom will direct it. Many people pray for increase while operating from fear-based decisions, fear of lack, fear of the future, fear of losing control. Fear repels miracles because fear contradicts trust. Alignment requires trust that God is not just your provider, but your source. Providers can change, sources do not. Alignment also requires honoring divine order. When God gives instructions, they are not suggestions. Obedience is a financial strategy. What you delay in obedience, you delay in manifestation. Some breakthroughs are waiting on a single act of obedience that seems unrelated to money but is directly connected to access. Heaven does not separate spiritual obedience from financial outcomes. They are intertwined. Desperation prays emotionally. Alignment prays legislatively. When you understand who you are, you stop asking God to do what He has already empowered you to enforce. Alignment activates authority. Authority shifts atmospheres. When authority speaks, resistance moves. This is why some prayers feel heavy and others feel effective. Effective prayer flows from position, not pressure. Alignment also requires separation. There are financial delays caused by relational misalignment. Who you are connected to affects what you can access. Certain financial doors remain closed because of ungodly agreements, unhealthy partnerships, or misplaced loyalties. God will not fund disorder. He funds purpose, vision, and obedience. When alignment is established, finances respond without strain. Opportunities appear without manipulation. Favor replaces frustration. Systems shift quietly. What once required struggle now responds to grace. This is not accidental. It is the reward of order. Heaven backs alignment because alignment reflects divine government on earth. God honors covenant, not convenience. Covenant is binding, intentional, and costly, while convenience is seasonal, comfortable, and negotiable. Many people desire covenant results while living convenient lives. They want God's faithfulness without demonstrating faithfulness themselves. but covenant works on mutual commitment. God does not respond to what is easy for you. He responds to what is aligned with agreement. When you enter covenant, you are no longer acting based on feelings, moods, or circumstances. You act based on promise, responsibility, and trust. Convenience follows comfort. Covenant follows calling. Convenience asks, what works best for me right now? Covenant asks, what did I agree to, even when it's uncomfortable? Financial miracles are released in covenant spaces because covenant creates consistency. God can trust covenant people with increase because they are stable in obedience. Stability attracts supply. Instability delays it. This is why some people experience sudden breakthroughs and others experience cycles. Cycles are often signs of convenience-driven living rather than covenant-driven discipline. Covenant requires sacrifice. You cannot walk in covenant without giving something up. Abraham had to leave familiarity before he accessed multiplication. Convenience would have kept him comfortable. Covenant pushed him forward. Financial covenant works the same way. There are habits God asks you to release, spending patterns He asks you to correct, and priorities He asks you to reorder. These instructions are not punishment. They are positioning. Covenant positioning creates long-term access, not temporary relief. God honors covenant because covenant mirrors His nature. God is not emotional, impulsive, or reactive. He is faithful, consistent, and intentional. When you live conveniently, your commitment fluctuates. When you live covenantally, your obedience is steady. Heaven releases resources where trust is proven. Covenant proves trust over time. Convenience proves nothing except preference. Many prayers fail because they are prayed from convenience. People pray only when pressure rises, but covenant prays before crisis appears. Covenant maintains prayer, giving, discipline, and obedience even when nothing seems to be changing. This is where trust is built. God watches patterns, not moments. One emotional prayer does not outweigh years of inconsistent alignment. Covenant is measured in patterns, not promises. Financial covenant also requires honoring God first, not last. Convenience gives God what is left. Covenant gives God what is right. This principle governs access. When God is first, provision follows. When God is optional, increase becomes delayed. God will never compete with convenience. He waits for alignment. Covenant removes competition because God is already prioritized. When you step into covenant, finances stop being random. Provision becomes intentional. Open doors become strategic. Increase comes with instruction. This is why covenant people are not shocked by blessing. They are prepared for it. Covenant creates capacity. Capacity attracts supply. God honors covenant because covenant can carry what convenience cannot sustain. Every financial struggle has a spiritual root, whether acknowledged or ignored. Money moves through systems, and every system is governed by laws. When those laws are violated, restriction appears. People often fight financial pressure with natural solutions alone, never realizing that what they are experiencing in the visible realm was authorized in the invisible first. Until the root is confronted, the fruit remains unchanged. You cannot permanently fix a spiritual issue with a natural response. You may manage it temporarily, but management is not transformation. Spiritual roots are established through beliefs, words, decisions, and agreements. What you believe about money shapes how you interact with it. If you believe lack is normal, you will unconsciously sustain it. If you believe struggle is part of your identity, you will tolerate what God intended you to confront. Many financial battles are sustained by internal agreements that were never challenged. Prayer exposes these agreements. When truth replaces lies, authority is restored. Words also plant roots. Repeated negative confessions create spiritual permissions. Saying, "I'll always be broke, nothing ever works for me, or money never stays with me," is not harmless speech. Words are legal instruments in the spirit. They establish atmospheres and authorize outcomes. Financial frustration often grows in environments saturated with fear-filled language. When prayer shifts your speech, it begins uprooting what has been planted for years. There are also generational roots. Patterns of debt, struggle, mismanagement, or scarcity can travel through bloodlines when they are never confronted. This does not mean you are cursed. It means cycles exist. Cycles continue until someone with understanding interrupts them. Prayer is interruption. When you pray with authority, you are not just asking for increase. You are dismantling inherited systems that were never aligned with God's design. Disobedience can also create spiritual resistance. When God gives instructions and they are ignored, access becomes restricted. This is not punishment, it is protection. God blocks certain financial doors because entering them without alignment would damage you. What feels like delay may actually be mercy. Prayer brings clarity. It reveals whether resistance is external opposition or internal misalignment. Spiritual warfare is often involved in financial pressure. Not every struggle is caused by poor decisions alone. Sometimes opposition targets your provision because provision fuels purpose. When finances are attacked, vision is delayed. Prayer restores momentum by reinforcing authority. When authority is reestablished, resistance weakens. Once the root is addressed, the struggle loses its power. Financial freedom begins in the spirit before it appears in accounts. When spiritual order is restored, provision responds, systems realign, opportunities open. What once felt heavy becomes manageable. What once resisted now cooperates. This is the power of addressing the root rather than reacting to the surface. Prayer shifts systems before it shifts salaries. Money does not move randomly. It moves through structures, policies, opportunities, relationships, and timing. When people pray only for a higher income without addressing the systems surrounding their finances, they limit the scope of their breakthrough. God does not merely increase numbers, He restructures environments. Before provision shows up in your hands, it is often released in places you cannot yet see. Prayer goes ahead of you and rearranges what your effort alone could never touch. Systems include favor, access, positioning, and timing. A salary is the result of a system, not the system itself. When God shifts a system, salaries follow naturally. This is why some people experience sudden promotions, unexpected contracts, debt cancellations, or new streams of income without striving. The system changed, so the outcome had no choice but to respond. Prayer targets the system, not just the symptom. Many people labor without progress because they are working inside systems that are misaligned with their purpose. Prayer reveals where alignment is missing. Sometimes the issue is not how hard you work, but where you are planted. God can bless effort, but He multiplies alignment. When prayer exposes misplaced labor, it saves years of frustration. A shifted system can accomplish in months what striving could not produce in decades. Prayer also dismantles systems of limitation. Financial ceilings are often enforced by invisible rules people have accepted as normal. This is as far as I can go. People like me don't get opportunities like that. I'm limited by my background. These beliefs function as internal systems that restrict increase. Prayer confronts these structures by reintroducing truth. When truth enters, limitation loses authority. Spiritual opposition often works through systems, not events. It creates repeated patterns of near breakthroughs, delayed payments, unstable income, or constant emergencies. These patterns are not coincidental. Prayer disrupts patterns by reasserting divine order. When divine order is restored, chaos loses its foothold. Stability begins to replace unpredictability. When systems shift, provision becomes sustainable. A sudden salary increase without a system shift often leads to greater stress. More money in a broken system produces more pressure, not peace. God is intentional. He fixes foundations before he adds weight. Prayer allows God to reinforce what will hold the blessing long term. Prayer also activates strategic connections. God often uses people as part of financial systems. Right relationships open doors that skill alone cannot. Prayer positions you to be seen, remembered, and recommended. It aligns timing so that conversations happen at the right moment with the right people. When systems are aligned, finances follow without strain. What once required chasing begins to come looking for you. Effort becomes effective. Labor produces return. This is why prayer is not a last resort, but a primary strategy. It secures the infrastructure that sustains financial miracles. Over time, obedience unlocks access to hidden provision. God's blessings are often waiting behind doors that require action, not just intention. Many people pray for financial miracles while remaining passive, hoping that provision will arrive without personal alignment to God's instructions. But obedience is the key that opens doors invisible to the natural eye. What God has prepared for you is not random, it is strategically placed, often in areas you may be hesitant to step into. Delay is not always denial. Sometimes it is a test of your willingness to move when called. When you act in faith, even in small steps, God releases resources that were previously inaccessible. Obedience is not about perfection, it is about positioning. It signals readiness to receive, demonstrating that you are a trustworthy steward of what God intends to release. Many financial miracles are withheld because God is waiting to see if you can respond correctly to instructions, even those that seem minor or inconvenient. The natural response is often procrastination or rationalization. I'll do it later. I'm not ready yet. It doesn't make sense now. These delays block access to provision. Faith-filled obedience breaks through these barriers. Hidden provision is often linked to alignment with God's purposes. When your actions mirror His will, doors open that the world cannot explain. Opportunities that once seemed impossible now appear strategically in your path. Sometimes provision comes in forms you would not expect: an unexpected contract, a timely connection, or a sudden debt cancellation. These manifestations are tied directly to obedience. Every act of compliance positions you to receive, creating momentum that multiplies what you have already been given. Obedience also removes resistance. Financial systems, both natural and spiritual, often respond to order. Disobedience creates friction, producing stagnation, delays, or repeated setbacks. When you respond in obedience, friction diminishes and systems begin to operate as they were designed. Favor, increase, and opportunity flow freely. This is why some see instant breakthroughs while others remain stuck in cycles of struggle. Access is conditional upon willingness to act, to step out, and to follow the instructions God has given. Sometimes obedience requires sacrifice. God may ask you to adjust spending habits, release unhealthy partnerships, or give sacrificially. These acts are not burdens, they are gateways. Provision cannot be fully received if the vessel is not prepared to carry it. God honors integrity and alignment more than effort alone. Every obedient step aligns you with the flow of supernatural increase. Faith without action cannot unlock the hidden storehouses. Prayer sets the intention, but obedience enforces the release. Provision is often closer than you think, yet it remains hidden until you move. The moment you step into obedience, the atmosphere shifts, favor multiplies, and doors previously unseen become accessible. God has strategically placed resources behind instructions, and each step of obedience reveals more of His abundant plan. Access to hidden provision is cumulative. Small acts of obedience today position you for larger breakthroughs tomorrow. What seems insignificant in the moment can be the key that unlocks long-term financial transformation. God's system is not random, it is orderly, relational, and reward-based. Obedience connects you to the rhythm of divine increase, ensuring that when provision manifests, it manifests sustainably and powerfully. Words create financial climates. Every word you speak carries authority in the spirit, shaping the environment in which your finances operate. Words are not just expressions, they are legal instruments. When you consistently speak negativity, fear, or limitation over your finances, you are planting seeds that produce cycles of struggle. Statements like, "I can't make ends meet," "money never stays with me," or "I'm always behind" are not harmless complaints. They are contracts that the Spirit honors. Conversely, words of faith, declaration, and alignment begin to establish a climate where provision, favor, and opportunity can thrive. Your words carry power because they broadcast your beliefs and align your environment with what you expect. When you speak lack, you invite limitation. When you speak increase, you invite expansion. The spiritual law governing speech is precise. What you decree in faith sets in motion forces that respond before the natural realm sees evidence. Many people are surprised when breakthroughs happen suddenly, not realizing that their prior declarations prepared the atmosphere for such change. Words create momentum, and momentum produces measurable results. Consistency is key. Random or occasional declarations have less impact than steady, intentional speech. The financial climate you create with words is cumulative. Each statement of faith, each declaration of prosperity, each act of gratitude strengthens the spiritual environment around you. Just as a farmer tends soil consistently to yield a harvest, you must cultivate your words to produce financial fruit. Neglecting this discipline allows old limiting patterns to persist. Words also confront and dismantle opposition. Financial resistance, whether in the form of debt, delayed opportunities, or unseen spiritual barriers, responds to authoritative speech. Declaring God's promises over your finances challenges the status quo and shifts systems that would otherwise remain stagnant. Resistance cannot stand against consistent, faith-filled declarations that align with God's word. Your words legislate in the spiritual realm, altering conditions that determine natural outcomes. Negative words not only block provision but also attract confusion and mismanagement. Speaking doubt or fear over your finances clouds judgment and disrupts decision-making. Conversely, speaking with clarity, authority, and expectation opens doors of insight, creativity, and strategic connections. Opportunities begin to appear in alignment with the declarations you have made. Favor, increase, and alignment often follow words long before effort or circumstance catch up. Gratitude amplifies the power of words. Declaring thanks in advance for provision sets a financial climate of expectation and trust. It signals to heaven that you recognize God as your source and that you are ready to receive. Thankfulness releases momentum, activating cycles of increase that are otherwise dormant. Your speech becomes a vehicle for supernatural provision. When words are used intentionally, they transform scarcity into abundance. They shift atmospheres, alter systems, and align natural circumstances with divine strategy. What you say daily shapes the financial climate around you, establishing either restriction or freedom. By cultivating intentional, authoritative speech, you create a fertile environment where miracles are not only possible, they are inevitable. Resistance often appears right before release. Many people experience their greatest financial pressure just before a breakthrough. This is not coincidence. It is a spiritual pattern. Opposition intensifies when a miracle is near because the enemy knows the value of what is about to manifest. Just as gold is refined under intense heat, your faith and perseverance are tested before increase. Pressure is often the signal that God is aligning circumstances, opening doors, and preparing provision that cannot be obtained without persistence. Resistance comes in many forms: unexpected expenses, delayed payments, relational conflict, workplace challenges, or internal doubts. These are not random hardships, they are spiritual markers. The closer you are to receiving a divine shift, the more obstacles may appear to attempt to divert you from your assignment. Recognizing this pattern allows you to respond with faith rather than fear, knowing that persistence under pressure activates provision. Spiritual awareness is essential to navigating resistance. When you understand that opposition is temporary and targeted, you can pray strategically. Resistance is a signal, not a verdict. It reveals where spiritual engagement is required, whether through prayer, declaration, alignment, or obedience. Many breakthroughs are postponed not because God is absent, but because resistance has not been properly addressed in the spirit. Identifying and confronting it ensures that nothing blocks the flow of what has already been promised. Resistance also tests your integrity and consistency. Financial miracles are often withheld from those who give up too quickly or compromise. Their principles under pressure. The intensity of opposition measures readiness. Those who maintain faith, obedience, and positive declarations despite difficulty demonstrate the capacity to steward the increase they are about to receive. In this way, resistance refines character while preparing the way for blessing. Persistence during resistance builds spiritual authority. Every act of faith against pressure strengthens your position in the spirit. When you refuse to yield to fear, frustration, or discouragement, you are effectively enforcing God's order in your financial realm. Systems that were previously blocked begin to realign, and doors of opportunity begin to open. What once seemed impossible becomes inevitable. Timing is also revealed through resistance. Sometimes the miracle is ready, but the natural environment must catch up. Just as a seed must endure the soil and weather before sprouting, provision must navigate the appropriate systems. Resistance indicates that the timing of release is being calibrated for maximum impact. Patience combined with persistent prayer ensures that when the breakthrough arrives, it is sustainable, permanent, and aligned with divine strategy. Understanding that resistance is a prelude to release changes perspective. Pressure is no longer discouraging but confirming. It becomes the proof that increase is imminent. By embracing resistance with faith, you position yourself to receive the miracle, prepared not only to benefit from it, but also to manage it with wisdom, gratitude, and stewardship. Stewardship sustains miracles. Receiving a financial miracle is only the beginning. What you do with it determines whether it multiplies or diminishes. Many people pray for breakthroughs but are unprepared to handle increase, and as a result, blessings fade quickly. Stewardship is the discipline of managing resources wisely, honoring God with what you have, and using provision to advance purpose rather than indulgence. Without stewardship, miracles are temporary. With stewardship, they become permanent and generational. Stewardship begins with attitude. How you value money, opportunities, and resources determines how much you can retain and multiply. Gratitude, discipline, and accountability are spiritual principles that govern the sustainability of financial increase. Those who steward wisely are trusted with more, while those who squander or neglect responsibility often face cycles of loss, regardless of the size of the blessing. Stewardship transforms miracles into a lifestyle rather than an isolated event. Stewardship also involves prioritization. God often releases provision strategically, and how you allocate resources determines the impact of that miracle. Giving, investing, saving, and using finances to advance vision are all aspects of faithful stewardship. Ignoring these principles creates instability. The miracle may arrive, but without structure, it cannot produce lasting results. Discipline in daily financial decisions reflects readiness for larger supernatural increase. Faithful stewardship protects against spiritual attacks. Financial breakthroughs can attract opposition, tests, or temptation. When provision is mishandled, it opens doors to loss, stress, and conflict. Stewardship acts as a shield, preserving what God has released. It aligns natural behavior with spiritual principles, ensuring that blessing is not only received but maintained and expanded. Stewardship also multiplies impact. Properly managed resources create influence, opportunity, and further increase. Money becomes a tool for purpose, allowing you to bless others, invest in growth, and leave a legacy. The miracle is no longer personal, it becomes a platform for divine multiplication. Stewardship ensures that provision flows beyond immediate need, building a foundation for long-term abundance. Learning stewardship requires humility and accountability. It may involve seeking counsel, adjusting spending habits, or realigning priorities with God's vision. Every deliberate act of faithful management strengthens your capacity to handle greater increase. Stewardship is not passive. It is active engagement with the miracle in a way that honors God and secures sustainability. When stewardship is practiced consistently, financial miracles do more than provide relief. They transform lives, families, and communities. They establish stability, create momentum, and reinforce the principle that God's provision is not temporary but enduring. Stewardship turns a one-time miracle into a lifetime of abundance, ensuring that every blessing carries exponential potential.